Yo, what's up? This is Elder's Terror, and today we're going to be talking about Late Night with the Devil. I found out about this movie because a buddy of mine sent me the trailer. I had never heard about it before, but the trailer blew my fucking mind, so I decided I needed to immediately make plans to go check it out. Those plans were delayed, and now that it's out on streaming services, I'm having a chance to check it out and talk about it. And man, let me tell you, this has got to be my favorite horror movie of 2024 so far. It's not often that something that's just niche and weird enough kind of scratches that itch for me, especially with modern horror movies. A lot of them just kind of follow the same basic formula that just isn't for me personally, but this one did it. And they kick things off by making sure that those weird vibes are known. There's like 100 production intros at the beginning of this thing. I was sitting there for so long, I started thinking that something was wrong here. There must be so many hands on this production, like what is going on? And then 15 minutes into the movie, they hit you with another one. And it was just nonsensical enough to be brilliant. I loved it. And in true art house film festival fashion, for some of the intro title sequences and for some of the cutaways, they actually used like AI to generate them. It seems like a waste for me because these things would be really easy to just pay somebody to make, especially if you're already doing everything from a DIY standpoint. I don't understand why getting AI involved is necessary. They tried to make it look like it was an actual broadcasted late night show from 1977. It's really cool watching it. The majority of the movie is filmed like that with mute color tones and this boxed in ratio. It looks great. And then there are certain points where they separate like the behind the scenes stuff and like some other stuff with like different kinds of editing tricks, and it just makes the whole thing feel like a really wild, surreal experience. Proceed with caution because we're going to be getting into some spoiler territory here. So the movie starts off by introducing us to Jack, who is a talk show host who recently lost his wife to cancer. There's two things that you need to know about this guy. One, he recently lost his wife to cancer, and two is that he really wants to fuck Johnny Carson. He wants to be him, he wants to be the new him, and the town's not big enough for the two of us. My man Jack's whole identity is that he needs to beat Johnny Carson in the ratings. He wants to be the ultimate top dog late night TV show host. But in his quest, he is failing, and he is failing hard. In fact, not only was he failing, but people were becoming dissatisfied trying to watch a depressed widower frantically try to host a TV show, which is absolutely fucked when you think about it. So that brings us to tonight, the big night, Halloween night 1977, the night that this movie takes place, where Jack attempts to put on an occult extravaganza by gathering up the worst group of professionals that his money could afford in hopes of recording something shocking to show his audience and save his show Night Owls. One by one, we start to be introduced to Christou, Carmichael, and Joan. Christou is our opening act, and this guy perfectly portrays what I consider to be bottom of the barrel paranormal showmanship. He basically does this thing that we've all seen on TV at one point or another, where he'll start naming vague, general, super common names like John, Joseph, Jack, Edward, Edmund, close enough. Get as much information as he can out of these families in order to kind of like guilt trip them into believing in his con. So he's looking around the crowd trying to get anybody to believe in his bullshit that he can. And then he's overcome with this like crazy sensation of pain. There is some kind of malicious entity that is trying to use him to speak to somebody in the crowd. And it's given him so much pain. The dude is like sitting there like, dude's fucking losing his mind.
Does anybody out here know a mini? Does anybody out here know a mini? Please accept! Please accept!
Dude, it's terrifying. And the whole time, Jack's looking around the audience like, anybody know a mini? Do you know a mini? You? Maybe? So they calm down Christou and they get him to sit down, and then they bring out Carmichael. And yo, straight up, fuck this guy. Like, I don't even really know why I hate this guy so much, because I totally agree with him on all grounds, and he may or may not be an actual wizard, but he's such a pompous asshole, and I mean, just look at this guy. Fuck Carmichael. All my homies hate Carmichael. But his whole deal here is that he wants to ruin everybody's time and prove that nothing that's going on here is actually real. He's kind of like the masked magician if the masked magician got no bitches. This guy then puts his whole balls on the table and offers $100K to anybody that can prove him wrong. Christou gets pissed and tries to leave, but then Jack stops him and tells him he actually does know who Minnie is. And, Christou, like, just fucking dies after hearing this. I don't know what happened. I don't know. I guess this like triggered some kind of response from the demon frequencies in his brain, but homie just starts throwing up black sludge everywhere. And then here we get some backstage stuff. This stuff is really cool because it's so different stylistically. This is what I was kind of alluding to earlier when I was talking about how in certain parts it breaks the format that the rest of the movie is in, where it's not just the raw from the live broadcast. We actually get like a little bit more cinematic vibe here. Things are frantic, people are running all over the place. Jack is sweating buckets. Carmichael's still being a dick. And then when we come back from break, Jack introduces the real star of the show. He presents to the audience a book called Conversations with the Devil by Dr. June Ross, and then plays a clip for the audience. This clip explains to us that there was once a cult called the First Church of Abraxas. And these guys are just awesome. This is straight up, on the nose, cheesy as hell, dudes running around in cloaks with sacrificial daggers. It looks so goofy and it's awesome and I love it. However, these guys were breeding children for ritualistic sacrifices, and we do not love that. That crosses the line into not awesome cult territory. Not cool. So the FBI decided to get on them for crossing that line, and they surrounded their house, but these guys did not want to go to jail, so they burned themselves alive in their church house to avoid their convictions. The lone survivor of this, however, was a young girl named Lily, and she was picked up by the FBI and taken in for studying. This is where she was linked up with Dr. June Ross, and together they would use her as a conduit to have conversations with the devil, and they wrote a book together. While the video package is playing, we got everybody talking behind the scenes. And first, Jack's sleazeball manager comes up to him to talk to him about how things are going. And this guy just looks exactly to me how I would expect Hyde from That 70s Show to look in the reboot if he hadn't ruined those people's lives. I mean, come on, you know that guy definitely smokes weed and pesters people behind the camera. But he comes up to him and he tells him, hey, Christou is dead. He passed away on the way to the hospital. This is not a joke. This is not part of the act. The guy's dead. And Jack is distraught to hear this, but he's like, you know what? Hey, show must go on. Business is business. Let's keep that on the down low. And yo, shouts out to my boy Christou for real, because I don't know if he was actually psychic or if he was just faking it and some weird demon shit happened and that like caused him to freak out or whatever. But regardless, my man refused to argue that shit for Carmichael, and he stayed 10 toes down until he was 6 feet down. That's on my man Christou. Just before the audience finishes up with the video package, Joan tries to talk to Jack and tells him that she doesn't know if this is a great idea because she explains that Lily had been going into demonic trances and saying his name recently. But Jack does not see this as a red flag. He thinks that there must be some kind of explanation for that. It's all good. So we just keep moving on with things. Now is probably a good time to mention that Lily's possession is very unique in this movie. It's not like The Exorcist where the demon is like slowly fighting for control of her body and trying to take her over so you can live in our world. It's more like she's permanently possessed and has more of like control over her body, and she's able to kind of summon the demon up at Joan's request so that she can communicate through her to the demon or to the demonic realm or hell or Abraxas or whatever she's trying to do here. During this interview, we learn a little bit about Joan. We learn that she's like a paranormal psychologist of some sort and that she's working with Lily to try to help her out, to try to figure out what's going on with her and help her get the demon out of her or something. It's not clear if exorcism is even on the list of things to do here. It seems like we're just talking to the devil right now. We also learn that the demon's name is Mr. Wiggles, and I love that. I have a thing for demons with stupid names. Shouts out to Toby from Paranormal Activity. You're a legend, dude. So we strap Lily down, and then Joan begins the reverse exorcism. And man, this checks all of the boxes. We got her writhing around in the chair, breaking her bones around. We got warped face looking all cut up for no goddamn reason. We got crazy looking eyes. We got the chair levitating up in the air. But most importantly, she looks at Jack and she says to him that she recognizes him. They go way back and that she knows him from where the tall trees were. Joan puts a stop to that shit. Carmichael starts freaking out trying to explain everything. And Jack's pants smell bad. So we decide to go to another commercial break. And god damn it, this is why I don't watch live television or have cable. These commercials are ridiculous. During the commercial break, Old Hyde comes back up to Jack, and he tells him, we can't back out now. I just got a call from the higher-ups. They said that ratings haven't been this high since the moon landing. They say we gotta keep it going. I don't care how many people die. I don't care what goes wrong. We have to do this. By the way, the crew is leaving in droves because they do not want to die from demons. He also mentions something to Jack about wanting to be taken with him to these like parties that he's been going to out in the woods, dancing around with people, something about orgies and maybe ritualistic sacrifices. When we come back from the break, this is when things start to get crazy. And I mean, really, this is when I realized that this movie was going to be different. We're sitting with Carmichael and Jack on the couch, and Carmichael is talking about how he believes that even what we had just seen could have been an illusion. There could have been something that was tricking us. It couldn't have been real. We didn't really see a girl just float around in a chair and start screaming in two voices at one time. That's impossible. So he goes on to perform his best trick of the night, which is hypnosis. He grabs Gus, and I don't think I've talked about Gus yet, but man, I love Gus. He's this like weaselly, sweaty little fucking goofy dude, and he just looks like somebody that would be shitting bricks every night as your co-host on the live show, just hoping that everything goes to plan. So Carmichael grabs Gus, and he tells him to come sit down, and he pulls out a pocket watch. He turns it on, and he starts spinning it, tells Gus to look into it, tells the audience to look into it. But I was starting to feel uncomfortable. I don't like that shit. I don't care if it's a movie. You're gonna hypnotize me, and I'm gonna be clucking like a chicken at my house for the rest of my life. I don't need that. I closed my eyes while this happened. But Gus did not close his eyes. Gus was put into a deep hypnotic trance. So Carmichael asks Gus, what are you afraid of? And Gus tells him worms. And then Carmichael notices something on Gus's neck. Gus checks his neck. Ah! And it's worms. He tells him, oh, I'm so hot. I feel them inside of me. And so he gets up and he pulls it. And there's worms spilling everywhere. Everyone's freaking out. There's straight up chaos in the studio, pandemonium. And then as quickly as it starts, Carmichael ends the nightmare. He just says, stop, and we are all snapped out of it. And he explains to us that this is group hypnosis. He put the whole audience, the crowd, everyone in the studio under the same hypnotic spell and caused them to have the same hallucination, the same mass delusion. And it's at this point that we establish a very fine rule in this movie. And that is that regardless of what we think we saw, what the people at home think they saw, and what the people in the studio think they saw, what the cameras are recording will always be what's factual. It will always have what's real on there. So they play the footage back, and they notice that there were no worms. It was just Gus acting silly. And they even asked the audience members, were there a few of you who it didn't work on? And they say, yeah, there's a couple of us that didn't. We just saw him in the studio like nothing was wrong. We were wondering what you guys were seeing. It's crazy, and it shows what hypnosis can do to people in the world that this movie takes place in. So Carmichael says that has to be the explanation for what we saw with the levitating chair and the demonic possession. So Lily starts to get irritated by the claims that Carmichael is making, and she says, well, we've established the rules about the videotape, so how about you look back and see the moment when I was possessed on there and see if you see anything different than what you did the first time. So they play back the tape, and not only do they find out that the demon possession did happen on the video, but that there was a frame caught where you can actually see Jack's dead wife standing behind her. And for one reason or another, this triggers some awful shit to happen. The lights cut out. When they come back on, lightning strikes Lily. A monitor busts open. Electricity hits her from the other side. Her head busts open in the middle, splitting into two halves. And then cosmic energy starts shooting out of the middle of it and just like killing everybody in the room. She fries Carmichael from the inside out. She snaps Gus's neck. She throws Joan up into the air and then slits her throat. And then Jack is tossed into a ridiculous acid nightmare trip. The last like 10 minutes of this movie are just so absolutely insane. I can't believe it. I feel like anybody watching this on psychedelics is just having the best time right now. So we got Jack journeying through his Alice in Wonderland trip where he's being escorted by the demon through ritual cult sacrifice, different eras of his TV show through its ups and downs. And we're finally placed at the end where he's sitting there with his wife as she's passing away of cancer. Through these visions, it is the demon trying to show him the consequences of his actions and the things that he has had to sacrifice for his fame. The demon is trying to show him the price in which his fame has come. So his wife, dying in agony, asks him to, Old Yeller style, take her out of the picture and he obliges. However, when this happens, he's snapped to reality and realizes that he has just murdered Lily on live television, stabbed her in the chest with a dagger. So there's a lot to unravel going on there, especially going on at the end, obviously. In my opinion, the last 10 minutes of the movie, the demon completely took over the show, and they just put all cards on the table, just explaining the whole thing in full. Throughout the movie, we're alluded to that Jack had been a part of a club society of elites, rich people, executives in Hollywood, stuff like that. These things are rumored to exist in real life. First time I heard about the Bohemian Grove was when I was like 12 years old, so I'm sure that you know about this. The Illuminati, ritual sacrifices, people getting rich, all that BS. But it's shown throughout the film that Jack likely, at one point, made a pledge to one of these groups in exchange for fame and fortune, more than likely to be the most famous late-night TV show host of all time. But the price that it would come at would be his wife's life. It's also pretty easy to tell that the demon was probably the one that made the call for them all to kill themselves, considering that the demon is real in this movie, and as it wanted no traces, they would probably have Lily killed too. I thought Late Night with the Devil was a great movie. Straight up, I'd give this like an 8 out of 10. I kind of wish that it was paced a little bit better, maybe a little bit longer, and that acid trip nightmare sequence was a little bit longer. I loved all the weird, super bizarre, crazy, tacky, cheesy stuff that went on throughout it, and I really wish that I just could have spent more time in this world with these characters. In just an hour and 30 minutes of runtime, they set up so much story. I want to know more about these characters. I want to see what it was like when Jack was there, if he knew what he was doing, if he didn't. Be sure to comment below and let me know what you thought of this movie and what your takeaways were. Thank you so much for watching my video. This is Eldritch Terror. Be sure to like and subscribe for more.